Welcome. This is the Intimate Partner Violence video series. This week is on shame and guilt. If you feel triggered or emotional by any of the information, please pause and do some self-care. You can reach out for support from our office, a friend or family member, or if you're in crisis, please call Mobile Crisis. And check out the resources that go along with this video. They are found on our website. So we're going to start out today looking at guilt versus shame. What is the difference between the two? And so guilt is a feeling of I made a mistake. I did something wrong. It's an action. Guilt can lead to positive change, healing, and accountability. So it really is about saying I made a mistake. I need to do something to change it in the future, right? Shame, on the other hand, it's a feeling of I am a mistake. There's something wrong with me. Shame can lead to disconnection and pain. It's deeply connected to our sense of who we are, and it keeps us stuck. It's very heavy. It's very hard to feel like I can do something about it if I am just the problem in general. So we're going to talk about guilt on its own for a second. Because there's two types of guilt. There's justified guilt and unjustified guilt. Justified guilt is the reasonable temporary response to behavior. So I made a mistake or a choice that goes against my values. I can fix it and learn from it, right? So if you really did something wrong and you feel bad about it, that is justified guilt. Unjustified guilt is a chronic, heavy response to not meeting unrealistically high expectations. So this is the kind of guilt that people often feel when they're in abusive relationships. The example here is, my partner didn't have time to eat lunch at work today, but supper wasn't done when they got home. They get angry with me because they're hungry, and I feel guilty because I didn't start supper sooner. I should have known that they would be hungry, even though I didn't know they didn't eat lunch, right? And this is actually a pretty common situation in intimate partner violence, is that our partners expect us to read their minds, to meet their needs, to always know exactly what we have to do. But we can't do that. We can't read minds. We can't meet expectations and needs that aren't communicated to us. And so when we start to feel really guilty because, maybe we never have supper ready on time, or maybe we're never doing anything right, that's where, we start to feel this unjustified guilt. So when you're feeling guilty, what do you do about it? First step is recognize, is this justified or unjustified? If it's unjustified guilt, if it's because of an unrealistic expectation that there's no way that you could have known you needed to meet, then we need to let it go. We need to put that guilt down, give it back to the other person. That's not ours. We didn't do anything wrong. If it's justified, though, if we really did make a mistake, if we really did do something wrong, then we go to step 2, which is make amends if needed. Say sorry, explain what happened, explain that you understand that you've made a mistake. And then accept that you've made a mistake and move on. Don't, talk down to yourself and go over it and over it in your head and feel like, you've made this mistake and it's awful and horrible forever and ever and ever. Accept that you are human. We all make mistakes. And then move on. Learn from it and try to change the behavior in the future. So if you know that you've made a mistake and you don't want to repeat it, look at the situation, say what led me here and how can I do it differently next time? And then let go of perfection. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. None of us is. Perfection and striving for perfection can really make it easy to feel a lot of unjustified guilt. Let it go, accept that you will make mistakes and that you can learn and you can move on. That's part of being human. What about if you're feeling shame, that heavy, deep, hard feeling that there's something wrong with me? This is where we want to develop shame resilience. That's something that author Brene Brown talks a lot about. She has TED Talks and videos and books, so you can check her out. She's a great resource if you want to learn more about shame. First step is to recognize shame. Recognize what that feeling is like. Does your face get hot? Do you feel like shrinking? Some people kind of feel cloudy in their mind. And then the shame trigger. So what happened that made me feel shame, right? Practice critical awareness. Look at the situation and try and look for evidence. Do I need to feel shame? Is there really something wrong with me? Or is there more evidence that supports that this was just a mistake? I made a choice. I took a wrong turn, but I can fix this. And I still have value and worth. Reach out to others to find empathy and build connections. Empathy is the antidote to shame. Finding people who can say, that must be really hard. I'm really sorry that you're going through that, with no judgment, with no blame, that helps lift us out of the big dark cloud of shame. And speak your shame. Find a safe person, somebody that you trust, who has empathy, and tell them. Talk about it, write it in a journal, get it out of you. Because shame can only live in the shadows of darkness. It cannot survive in the light. Shame needs secrecy and it needs silence. That is how it lives. If we start naming it, if we start talking to empathic others, then that shame can't stay and it can't hold us back. It sounds easier than it is. It's a very heavy emotion, but this is a good place to start. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Those are two really big emotions, but those are good places to kind of start tackling guilt and shame and trying to climb out of it. If you want more support or information about shame or guilt or any of the other topics, contact our office at 306-244-0127. And until next time, take care.